Hey folks, my name is Nick and welcome to today's video. Today we're making a colorful ocean nightlight diorama with corals, turtles, fish and sharks. Why do you ask? Because I have always been fascinated by the underwater world. So let's get started. With my 3D printer I've printed various corals, glued for better handling on some styrofoam and then primed them with the airbrush. Corals are usually very colorful. As you can see, I have therefore used pretty much everything in colors that I could find. For the body I take a piece of old wood that I found somewhere, so it becomes even an upcycling project. The middle of the wood I remove, which is quite troublesome, to place there later the reef.
So far so good. It's quite difficult without a workshop.
Then the whole thing is sanded with 120 sandpaper and each edge slightly chamfered for a nicer look. For the reef I cut different sized pieces of styrofoam and glue them down with a hot glue gun. I work my way up from the bottom, getting thinner and thinner so that a nice shape is created. The plaster is mixed with a little water in a clean container until it becomes a creamy mass. Any excess adhesive threads are briefly torched off. Then I take my time and cover the styrofoam with the plaster and make sure that all openings are covered. As long as the plaster is still wet, I take a piece of aluminium foil, crumble it slightly and then carefully cover the plaster with it. Then it's a matter of waiting. A pretty good trick for our natural rock structure. And it's so satisfying. When the plaster dries, I use inexpensive paints from the hardware store. First, I apply some black on which I then mix as long as it is wet with white and brown directly, so you get a natural looking color gradient. Once the primer is dry, it's time to dry brush. I use an old brush and some white paint. The brush is dabbed on a paper towel until hardly any paint sticks in it and then lightly brushed from top to bottom over the primer. Elevations and edges also easily highlighted. A nightlight without light is, how could it be otherwise, no light. So I solder a small 3D volt LED to a battery clip. Let's grow the reef. I removed the corals shown at the beginning of the video from the styrofoam and glued them with my hot glue gun to the rocks. This took forever, but it was worth every second. Piece by piece our little coral reef grows. For this step I surely needed 2 hours and for the whole diorama a total of 60 hours. So give me a thumbs up if you like it so far. Thanks. Anyway, the sharks, turtles and fish I've also printed with my Anycubic 3D printer and painted afterwards. I try to let the animals look as natural as possible. I glued them with PVA glue and hot glue, which unfortunately caused some of the animals to come loose later when casting with epoxy resin. Better would have been here UV resin to fix the animals. At least I've learned something for the next time. Now I add some glue between the corals and animals on the rock. Then I sprinkle sand from my last vacation at the sea on it. The top where our LED sits I still paint black so that less light is reflected and no more grain is visible. I tape the wood all around neatly with some tape. From acrylic glass remnants I build a mold. I make sure that all corners and edges are sealed with hot glue, which, attention spoiler, did not work so well. Now we come to the part I was most afraid of. Epoxy resin. I use a resin that is mixed in a 2:1 ratio. I add some blue pigment to the resin and stir it gently to avoid air bubbles for several minutes. Another mistake I made is that I was too impatient and filled the entire mold with resin at once. The resulting heat has bent the acrylic glass. The painted animals and corals somewhat discolored and some even dissolved. That cost me a lot of nerves. The band shape I recovered with a lot of grinding. And I mean really a lot of grinding against straighten. I chamfered the edges and gave them the final touch with very fine sandpaper. Now I apply some clear varnish and polish the lamp after drying. Thanks for watching, let me know what you thought of the video. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here is the final result.